another episode of Women Who Lead, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today, I'm excited to have a trio of leaders whose role is to protect the investments of both the buyer and the seller, tasked with managing operations, responsible for ensuring clear title and smooth closing processes for the clients their organizations represent. Each of these leaders promotes the guarding of what is likely the biggest and most valued investment a person makes in their lifetime, their home. My name is Teresa Palacios Smith, and I'm Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for Home Services of America. And I'm the host of this series, which is a passion for me, and I know a lot of you too. So thank you so much for following us every single month. And it's passion because I get together with these powerful industry leaders who share their experiences over un cafecito. That's a cup of coffee, as we would do in the Latino culture. As you all know, especially because I'm Colombiana, I love the chance that we get to really kind of share with all of you. So let's get started. I can't wait for you to meet today's guests, our protectors. With me today is Lisa Dewolfe, and Lisa is the president of Trident Land Transfer Company. Try saying that 3 times fast, which is the affiliated title company for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Fox and Roach Realtors, and also Berkshire Hathaway Home Services New Jersey properties, serving the Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware markets. Lisa has more than 30 years of experience in the financial services area, and she leads a team of more than 200 title professionals who serve more than 6,000 realtor professionals across the network. Lisa is the vice chair of RESPRO and an active member of Realty Alliance. She's also a member of the Pennsylvania Land Title Association, the New Jersey Land and American Title Organization, as well as American Land and Title Association, which I think is one of the one that's the leader for all of them.
That's
and
right.
She has held numerous leadership and volunteer positions within all of these organizations. And so thank you, Lisa. I'm excited to have you join us today.
Thank you for having me, Teresa.
Amy Rigsby. Amy recently joined us, we're so lucky, at Home Services of America as the Director of National Title Operations, which is a real critical role for our organization today. Prior to joining Home Services, Amy was the Senior Vice President with SoftPro, which I learned is the most trusted provider of real estate closing title and escrow software. Amy is going to be advancing Home Services title and is going to be working with us on our business transformation projects, along with many other numerous roles. Amy has served in various roles in volunteering with the Alta Technology Committee, the local chapter of the Health Desk Institute, and has organized many team fundraiser events during her time at SoftPro, which I'm going to count on you helping us as well, including the Shepherd's Table Soup Kitchen and Wellington Rehab and healthcare. And I love that you even said that you love this work so much that in the future, this is something that you're going to follow because you feel that elderly people are the forgotten population. And I couldn't agree with you more. That's beautiful. So Amy, welcome as well.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be part of Home Services.
Awesome. And then Tonya Sellers. Tonya is the managing partner of Wiseman PC. She oversees the daily operation of the real estate and litigation law firm, and she also manages the firm's relationships with its largest institutional clients and serves as general counsel to several real estate brokerages, including, I know, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Georgia Properties, which I got a chance to work with you, Tonya, when I was there, as well as Harry Norman Realtors in Atlanta. Sonia is an active member of the Atlanta legal, real estate, and civic community, and throughout her career, Tonya has been a leader in various nonprofit organizations, serving on numerous boards of trustees in several disciplines. And in 2020, SoftPro, the national industry leader, provided you with that Tonya as a trendsetter, as a professional in the title insurance industry who has made a significant impact and emerged as a leader, demonstrating passion for the industry and everything she does is professionally. So welcome, Tonya. I'm so excited you're on the show as well.
Thank you, Teresa.
So let's get started because I'm really excited to hear about your background. And the first question I ask everybody, just because I'm curious of how you got started in the real estate industry. So I'm going to start with you, Amy. What got you into real estate? Because usually it's not necessarily either by choice or by chance. Which was it for you?
By chance, for sure. I actually worked for a real estate attorney all through college. And when I was finished with college, he offered me a job and I stayed. And here I am all these years later. I did take a quick break and work for the mortgage or in the mortgage industry for a little while. So I was able to gain that experience. And then 23 years ago, I went to work for SoftPro and worked there. And it gave me great experience with all states because the software is deployed to all 50 states, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. So I got to gain that experience as well. I don't think I don't think I, grew up thinking I'd work for a software company in the real estate market or even for a real estate company at all. But here I am, and I have to tell you, it's been a great ride. I've loved every minute of it.
Oh, that's great. So what was your degree in and where'd you go to school? Because I know our audience will want to know.
Actually biology, and I went to East Carolina University.
I love it. So you were a STEM somebody that was in the STEM fields, which is very hard to find. And
Yeah.
software solutions is a tech. It's a STEM field. So
It is.
so excited to have somebody with that background within our organization.
Thank you.
How about you, Lisa?
Well, I got in it by chance as well. I relocated to Westchester, Pennsylvania from a small town called the Villas, New Jersey, where my family is from. And I took a job working as a processor for Weichert Realtors, but back then they were known as Andrews Dickinson and Pinkstone. I think a lot of our professionals will remember that name. I worked as a processor for about a year, maybe a year and a half, and then I was recruited by Quaker Abstract, who was the affiliated title company for Hoops Better Homes and Gardens. And they were going to train me to be a settlement officer. That's the title that we use for our escrow officers. I know probably a lot of your audience will understand the term escrow officer. That job was a dream job for me, and it grabbed me hook, line, and sinker. I mean, I love the socialization that I had, the interactions that I had with the realtors and first-time home buyers, and the freedom to just run around and, find out what was going on in their worlds and to be the trusted settlement provider for them. It really was what got me hooked into the business. And eventually I would end up in management. I would take a step back and then I would be drugged back in again. And here I am. So almost 30 years later.
Well, it's obviously your personality suits that of getting that interaction with the customer, which is so critical. People don't realize that it is scary, that whole process of buying a home. And sometimes those questions come across as to what even that is. And we're going to go into that in a minute. But Tonya,
scary butts, exciting for the first-time home buyer.
Right. It's
right?
the best feeling.
Exactly.
How about you, Tonya?
So mine's a little bit, kind of fell into it as well. Well, I think many people in real estate actually share that story when I've spoken with others about it. But I had started work. I was a new attorney, started work at a local firm. And at the time, they had one office that was dedicated to helping developer clients sell the condos that they had developed. I was not in the transactional side. I was in a different side of real estate law, but there was a refi boom the year that I started. So they recruited the 3 new associates to assist with closings. And I took to it a little more than the other 2, just personality wise, and just enjoyed it. So I became kind of the official backup for the firm at the time in assisting with closings. And I still was practicing, traditional billable legal work, assisting clients with other types of issues. And then fast forward a few years later, we started our own firm, a group of us did, and we added an additional closing office. So we started out with 2, and I kind of helped with it again all the way, I managed the firm, did the business side, continued to do some legal practice, but also assisted with the closing piece as well.
Oh, what, Antonia, anybody that knows you you are so well versed in every area and such an asset to Wiseman. I will tell you that. I mean, we have used in the past, and you've been so instrumental when I was with Georgia Property. So it's obviously what you do is a passion as well, and you do it so very well. So
Thank you.
again, welcome all of you. I'm so excited. And the one question that people always ask is, really, tell me about what you do, because I entitled this The Protectors, and there's a reason for that. So just, anybody that wants to chime in, tell me what that means. What do you do that helps individual families, with the process in the real estate transaction? Anybody? Amy, I think you seem to be really kind of excited about that question.
Yeah, so I think, as you mentioned earlier, people, when they buy a home, that is their largest investment. Most always that is. So those of us who service this industry, our job is to make sure that process is as smooth as possible. People are afraid because they're not experienced in buying homes and selling homes. So our job is to make sure that everything goes smoothly, that it's compliant with any and all rules and regulations, whether they're federal or state regulated. And customer service, from the time that, the order comes in and it's a new transaction to the time that, title insurance policies go out the door. Our job is to make sure that all of that happens and happens in a timely manner. So I love that challenge, to make sure that, everybody has what they need from a software perspective. And Home Services has almost 600 users on SoftPro. So they're everywhere, right? So our job is to make sure that they have all the tools that they need to get their job done successfully.
I would add to that, sorry, Teresa.
Oh, no, yeah.
Buyers and sellers also entrust us with personal information, with their money. I mean, you think about, they're wiring sometimes, their retirement savings to us in order to assist with the purchase. We're responsible for ensuring the sellers receive their money. So, and in addition to that, we're responsible for ensuring that the buyer gets good title. Mm-hmm. I'm right now actually working on a title claim that actually arose 60 years ago. It's been conveyed improperly for 60 years. And in essence, what our owners think they own, they actually don't own. It's going to take a quiet title claim to correct it. And they have title insurance, which protects them and protects the investment. So those are the kinds of really can be big issues. Remember, we're taking care of money and ensuring you really own the property you think you own.
I love that. And I think a lot of people are not aware. And I've seen lately a lot of commercials for these companies that are wanting you to go to them and pay additional dollars to be covered. And the truth is, what y'all do in the transaction within the companies that you represent, and there are a lot of great, all of our companies have great title companies they work with. And so make sure that it's an additional cost. You pay it for the bank, right? The bank always wants to protect their investment. So that's always going to happen. But people often think they don't need to protect their own investment. Well, heck, that's your own dollars. That's your hard-earned money that you've invested in. So you really want to make sure you take that little step to ensure that everything goes beautifully, freely for years to come. Even 60 years out of the transaction, you are still the individual that owns that property and are protected in the event title was never conveyed correctly to begin with. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. Lisa, anything else you want to add?
Yes, you referred to, Teresa, commercials for, companies saying that they can provide this kind of coverage. And I think you're referring to the infomercial for, I think it's called LifeLock.
Yes.
And people they misunderstand what LifeLock is actually selling compared to title insurance. LifeLock is selling, the service of monitoring your title to make sure that somebody after closing doesn't come along and transfer it into their name or put a mortgage on the property that you may not be aware of, which is fraud, right? So in title insurance, we have two products that we sell to the owner, a standard owner's title insurance policy and an enhanced owner's title insurance policy. The enhanced policy is a little more money. It's 10% in some areas, 20% in others, more than the standard premium. So if you're paying $2,000 for a title insurance policy, you're going to pay an additional $200, one-time fee. And with the enhanced policy, you get post-policy fraud protection. So when we say post-policy fraud protection, somebody comes along and, does some fraudulent act with your property. Under the title insurance policy, you will now have legal representation. The expense of that legal representation falls under the title insurance policy. Under LifeLock, that is not the case. It's simply a notification that a fraudulent step had taken place, and yet the person is required to pay a monthly fee.
That is so true. And
For
I
that
was just gonna say
service.
that it's a monthly fee that goes on forever. And the fact that the offer that comes through protects you and then also ensures that you have the legal representation. That's amazing. That is something I learned today. I did not know that. So thank you for educating all of us. So I know one thing, Lisa, you're passionate about. One of the things that we talked about in advance is and today we are all in the, it's all, as Alan Dalton says, and I bring up Alan because he always talks about real estate, there's always opportunities, no matter what part you're in. But it is very competitive and relevant with the changes in the market. How do we keep, our business intact? And also, how do we keep it, competitive, especially over the past 2 years with all that we've experienced, with what's forthcoming? And I know you all have a magic ball, right? That you can tell. But in general, what do we need to do, right, to just kind of make sure that we stay abreast and always up front of what we need to be doing especially during these conditions?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think part of our responsibility as leaders is to have some sort of a magic ball, something that we're looking into, and that we can make some sort of an educated, decision on where, things are going in the future. Our former CEO used to start off every, annual leadership meeting with a quote from Wayne Gretzky, and I know you've all heard it. A good hockey player skates where the puck is, but a great hockey player skates where the puck is going. Mm-hmm. And for us, it is so important that we pay attention to what challenges we're seeing within the industry, and, what trends are we seeing? And, the way that we stay in touch with all, what's going on there is making sure that we're participating in the trade organizations that you mentioned early on in all of our bios and the conferences that you yourself attend. And I think this is one of the things that our company has always been very good at, understanding where the business is headed and taking a look at our operations and evaluating them on some sort of frequent basis and making sure our processes are aligned with where the trends are. So an example would be, back in the financial crisis, I think, the entire industry was working on consolidating and centralizing operations. So when we went through that exercise, we found ourselves with two regional managers that we didn't really have a spot for any longer. But there was a need in the industry to help our realtors be comfortable with taking listings that would be short sales. They didn't know how to process them. So we took these two individuals who had so much experience in our industry and had a lot of value to bring to the table, and they started our short sale department. And we were able to help our realtors take those listings, negotiate their debt down so that they could sell their properties. Within the past 2 years, we've had the challenge of finding talent. When 2020 brought COVID to us, we had a high turnover rate in our escrow officer position. Many of those people were with us for a very long time, and they were afraid to be at the settlement table with, the public. So anyone who had retirement in their future took their retirement in 2020. So we had a high turnover rate. There was a need to bring on people at a rapid pace and train them, people from scratch, training them that had no industry knowledge at all, to get them at the settlement table to help us close these transactions for our realtors. We already had a training department in place. We just had to enhance what we were doing there so that we could, bring these young professionals on who were looking for a career, and many of them are still with us today.
Wow, I love that. You had to rethink, reevaluate, and also, change the path to help the industry. And what a beautiful thing you did.
Exactly.
To reshift those jobs, keep people employed, especially during the difficult time, especially in the last 2 years. Anyone else want to add or pipe in?
What I would add to what Lisa was saying, because what she's talking about reflects really the importance of understanding our customers and clients' needs and adapting when we need to do that. So again, back with the Great Recession, people had a need for someone to guide them through the short sale process.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, people have a need to understand how to adapt to the different markets. So how do we adapt? How do we be the greatest resource for our customers and clients to help them as they navigate their business?
I love it. And I think it's really important to also talk about that what I saw that the industry did so well, especially in closings and title, because in so many of our markets, and thankfully housing was deemed essential, which it is. Look at us today, right? We work remotely from our offices and our operations. The one thing I love was the fact that you came up with creative ways to close at the table. You did not have to be present to make that investment, did everything on, early on, made sure that everything was secure. Tanya, you talked about that, because that is so important, especially when you get so many emails saying, oh, send your money here instead of where you need to be sending your money to. So I think I was so impressed with the industry and how it was able to pivot. And thankfully, Amy, with the software that we had, the technology that we were really not touching as much as we could have been, this really propelled us to that level. So again, being creative and continuing to serve the customer in the best way we could. I think that all of you did that very well and very beautifully. So one thing I want to do now is really kind of shift our look, because I love to hear about your leadership and your style, and also how'd you get into leadership. And I know that in the title business, for the most part, I've seen there's a lot of women involved, which is very cool. I love it. However, Tonya, not so much as an attorney. I think that's definitely a unique aspect. So I'm going to start with you. Tell me any challenges that you have had, and what advice would you give to others, especially, in the role that you are in?
Well, I think it's the same, for everyone, but it's really committing to your best, focusing on the needs of your client. And when you do that, you will flourish, you will succeed. And I was fortunate, my first job was at a firm that was very supportive of women. It had a high, number of female attorneys. And then, of course, when I've been one of the owners of a firm, and so I was able to create an environment. So as a result, I don't think I experienced challenges that many women do in law and in other fields as well. So, but I do think it's just, even when you do have challenges, it's committing and focusing on the client need and customer needs. And that's how you succeed.
Well, that's always been said, right? When you find the need and you're able to fulfill it, that's really going to lead to success. And I think that's really important. So thank you so much for sharing. How about you, Amy? Any kind of advice, challenges that you've had, especially you started in in attorney's office too.
I did, but I will tell you from a leadership perspective, I don't think you don't start out thinking you're going to be a leader. I think you start out you want to make a difference, right? So I think that's the first place. If I were to tell anybody, it's your goal has to be, teamwork, and kindness and working together through, challenges. I think that's how we got through COVID, right? That's how, we realized that, wow, everybody's dealing with their own challenges at home and families and trying to juggle all of that. So allowing, just simple things, allowing people to work, flexible hours, and allowing people to work at home sometimes, and realize that, everybody has challenges. I've always managed a lot of people, and I realized, everybody can't be the cream of the crop, right? You have to recognize what people what value they bring. So I will tell you that I turned out, I went from wanting to make a difference, to being a leader, and that's how I did it. It truly, that's the result. So, if I'd like to, share anything, it really would be, work hard and be fair and pragmatic with your decisions, because that's how I got where I am.
Well, and you don't start there. I mean,
You
a
know,
lot of people think that you start, I'll tell you my first job and experience, I very rarely share it, but I was the assistant because my degree was in broadcasting. And so I got a job in television. And the first job that I got was as an assistant to the general sales manager of our company and,
Right.
and the station. And I remember the national director one day pulling me out of a meeting. And I thought, oh my God, he's going to ask me to do something extremely important. And I go up and he asked me to go get the keys, take the keys to somebody else. And I felt so disrespected and so, what? I mean, I didn't go to college for somebody to ask me to take the keys to someone to pull me out of them. I was so offended. But at the same time, I realized, this is a learning moment for you, right? You learn upon those moments that you are feeling kind of disrespected and you wondered, is it because I'm this? Or, and I know that he would have done it to anyone that he thought was his assistant, right? So again, look at where I am today, but at the same time, but I think about that. I also think about, don't do that to people, make sure you respect everyone for their role and their job and what they do and what they bring to the table. So it was definitely a learning experience for me, but also I realized it didn't happen. You just have to develop that respect before that, you have to earn it right before it's given. So Lisa, how about you?
Well, I agree with everything that everyone has just said. I don't think that it was never really a goal to become a leader of any sort, a manager of any sort, which is where I started in managing. But, just like Amy, you just want to do your best. I wanted to be the best. I wanted people to rely on me and, knew that I could get things done for them. And, my leaders always saw something in me, so they would offer me opportunities, which, I would take. And I got to a point, I was with one company where they offered me some management position, a management position, but I didn't have any mentors. I didn't have anyone to look up to. I didn't like their leadership style. And so I then left that company and joined another company, the company that I'm at now, actually. And there were very many leaders who I could very easily look up to. And I was able to run my sales office the way I wanted to run it. I ran it like I was running my own business, and I was successful. And eventually they would drag me back into management. And, it just happens when you work that way. People see something in you and you just end up, being pulled in those directions. And they've given me a lot of education over the years. I've participated in several leadership development programs that our company put on for those who they wanted to see move on and succeed the previous leadership. One of the things that was challenging for me, though, over the years was really gaining my confidence and not being so hard on myself, comparing myself to others. And my earliest memory was my first leadership meeting that I attended here. There were like 100, somewhere around 100 leaders in the room. And our executive team was rolling out a new concept, which was having lenders refer title business and taking the control out of the hands of the realtor. And I sat through just about 6 hours of this meeting, not necessarily understanding the concept. We had mortgage, title, and insurance here. And our title capture success rate was around 63% back then. The mortgage success rate was 30. So if they followed through with that concept, it would mean that our business would drop by more than 30%. So I felt like in the meeting, somebody said something and it went right over my head. I don't know what's happening here. And at the end of the meeting, the CEO and the president of the financial services was recapping and taking final thoughts and questions. And I very timidly raised my hand and, expressed my concern. And they just kind of looked at each other and nodded and, quietly ended the meeting. And then I later found out from a personal friend who had a personal relationship with the CEO of the company that our organization spent a lot of time on that initiative. And that one comment that I made shut the entire initiative down.
Wow.
Because no one else had thought of it.
Right.
And that one moment changed the way that I viewed my own opinion, and I was no longer afraid to express it.
Gosh, that's going to make me cry because that's obviously right. What an aha moment, because you spoke out. And a lot of times you hear there's always that hesitancy, especially when you're with a bunch of CEOs, right? That are so much smarter, you think, than you are. But sometimes the little things are the things that really make the biggest impact. Those people that are the quietest, who really know the business and understand it, not from a macro level,
right,
but from a micro level, which is what I think is really sometimes missing from that up in the cloud. It's really important that we understand the impact that it makes. And just that one comment, wow, I think that's such a great message. Never be quiet, listen, but also always have your voice heard. Thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing that. And obviously the risk that you had to take to switch companies altogether. Anyone else taking a risk like that, or had to say something where, certainly it was an uncomfortable moment, but it was also a very eye-opening moment?
Mine's slightly different, but I think when being in my 20s and having an idea to start a law firm, that was a bit of a risk.
I can imagine. That's a big one. I would say that's a big one.
In hindsight, I never hesitated. I never doubted it. But like when I look back and think about it, I'm like, oh, what in the world were you thinking?
Because you didn't know any better. I think sometimes people that don't know any better are the ones that succeed the most, because they haven't heard all the no's and the doubts behind them. Right. And so they're just like, oh, I can do this, right?
Yes.
I love that. How about you, Amy?
I think leaving after 23 years, I had a comfort zone. Like I was the one everybody went to because I didn't want anybody to outknow me in soft pro. So I think that was huge. You never know what's on the other side, but I have to tell you that like the grass is greener, and I'm so excited to be on the other side.
It's so true, Amy.
The grass is really green on the other side too, but it's just nice and refreshing. And I don't feel like I came to a company where I didn't know anybody. I mean, like I've worked with Tony and Lisa for years. So it didn't feel like I was jumping ship, it just felt like I was, just stepping over. And it's nice to be so welcomed, and to be able to use my knowledge to help all the companies find efficiencies and increase productivity, especially now that volume's down and rates are up. It's a great time to look for efficiencies for sure. So
and
that was my biggest risk.
It really is. People don't realize that when you've been with a company and everyone, you are the knowledge base, you are, there's a brain drain that happens, right? When you leave, but you're also so secure in your role to know
Right.
People have to come to me, right? Because I know it all. And then changing over to where I am now learning, which is exciting, but I'm not the one that knows everything. So it's
Not
again,
anymore.
what a risk, but what a great opportunity. And again, Amy, we're so happy to have you. So excited to have your background, because that's really what pulls us all together, is those experiences that we've held in the past that we can bring to our future roles. So I think it's been great to have you be able to bring that to our table. All right, so let's switch over to finding out what is been the most memorable event that has made such an impact in your life, whether it's professionally or personally, because I think sometimes that's also a nice thing to share that we don't get a chance to talk about. Tonya, I'm going to start with you.
So for me, I had the good fortune to grow up on a dairy farm in rural Alabama, and in a little place called Millerville. And it is not a town, it was just a place. And one of the things you learn, because I started feeding calves, my brother and I, when I was 5 years old, 5 and 4, with my mother, we fed calves every day. And then when we were 8 and 7, we started milking cows. And the thing with a dairy farm is it's 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So obviously you learn a lot about the value of work, but you also learn about the value of teamwork. And what I learned from that experience was that really no one person can do everything, and that you have to have a team, no matter, in order to really accomplish the best result. The other thing that by that experience was I was in a community that was small. So as a result, you knew things that were happening. You knew people who were older, you knew people who had babies. I mean, and you saw the impact that one small action can have on others. So it's those two things that really I have looked to throughout my life, both how you can accomplish so much more as a team than we can as individuals, and that even small actions can make a difference in others' lives.
Oh, what a beautiful story. Is Millerville still there?
Yes, it is. My parents still live there. They
Oh
don't
my
farm any longer,
God.
but they still live
I'm
there.
going to have to definitely go. It's not far. I mean, how far is it from Atlanta?
It is about 100 miles due west from
I've
Atlanta.
always wanted to be a farmer. I've always wanted to do that. I've always thought that would be fun. I know it would be. One of my very best friends growing up, they had a chicken farm. Now you're talking about, okay, but it was so, I love spending the night with her, and she would tell me I'm the only one because nobody else could stand the smell. But I just thought it was so exciting.
Yes.
To go to her, farm, and to see the chickens and the chicks and everything they did, but they worked every single day.
Yeah.
All of them did, and we would collect eggs. For me, it was fun. For her, it was work. So for thousands. I mean, this was a very, very important part of our environment. And the work they did was so critical. So again, thank you for sharing that. I love that. How about you, Lisa?
Well,
event or
so I'm sorry.
A memorable event or something that, yeah.
A memorable event. I'm not really sure. Let's see. What I will tell you is related to the farming. Whenever I'm having, a stressful moment, we all have them, right? I'm driving, I'm taking a ride somewhere, maybe driving down to the shore to see my family, and I'm passing all the farmland. And I think to myself, I want to do something a little simpler, like, maybe work on a farm. And then when I'm in my right mind, I think to myself, Lisa, that is not really what you should be doing because I know that it's a lot of work. We used to visit my father's family in Pittsburgh every year, and it was just such a wonderful experience. The parents would wake us up at 2:00 in the morning and throw us all in the back of the station wagon where we would sleep on this 6-hour ride, and then we would arrive on my aunt and uncle's farm, and there were always horses around and always lots of people around, and it's just a great memory for us as a family. But the work that they did on that farm was incredible. It was hard on the family members. There was a lot of stress that was brought upon them, through the demands of the farm. But it was a great experience for those who were visiting, I have to say. And one of the
Always.
things that I did notice though, and learn from them, is just the collaborative effort that it took to get the work done. Because if you think about it, they couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't go
Oh,
away
no,
overnight
no
without
vacation,
working
no.
closely together and making sure they were counting on each other.
Yeah.
We've always in our family, customer service, I don't know why, has always been top of mind, and working better together has always been top of mind for us. That's one of the things that I remember my parents teaching us. And I just get a lot from customer service. I mean, I'm happier as a person because I'm doing nice things for other people.
Wow, I love that. How about you, Amy?
Well, work-wise, professionally, I think I would have to say I have a memory of a gentleman I hired when he was 19 years old, right out of high school. And I watched him grow. And I recently had lunch with him just before I moved to Minneapolis. And he sat down with me. And of course, he was grateful for all the years we had together. And it was really nice. But he said, but I need to share something with you. And I was like, I can't wait. What is it? And he said, I make 7 times more than I made back when you hired me. And I was like, wow. So to watch him go from being, and I encouraged him to go to school during, like, he could work part-time and he could go to school and make up hours. But I have to tell you, the thought of how successful he is now, I adore him.
Oh,
And
that's obvious. Oh my God, you fostered that.
Yep.
What a great story.
awesome. Absolutely.
Memorable. Oh my
Yeah.
God, changing somebody's life, right?
Well, I don't know that I did, but he certainly had the initiative. I
Well,
was
but you
lucky enough to
impacted it,
work.
right? That first hire. I will never forget my first boss and the first hire, which was at the station that I was telling you about, because that's really where you got your first, start and
Right.
opportunity. Somebody believed in you. That, getting that first job is the hardest job that I think anyone will ever get, because they usually don't have the experience. Or I didn't, right? I, have the experience, and they say, oh, well, you need experience before you get that job. And then you got, so it's like really hard for that first opportunity. So I'm excited that you gave that young man that, and look at it where he is today. So what, as we move on, because we're almost running out of time, can you believe this? One of the things that you mentioned, Lisa, was the Leadership Academy, and also the fact that that really kind of helped propel you, right? And I was at the CEO Summit last week. Amy was there with me, and we were talking at one of my tables during lunch that several of the individuals that were now in CEO positions had been part of the Leadership Summit that Home Service America had done. It was called Maestro, I think, at one time. And to see all these leaders that were just in middle management during the time to be now CEOs of their companies, presidents. I mean, that's what I was with. And I realized how important, how impactful having that exposure it was for me when I became the NARA national president. Prior to that, the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, I was their chair. That's really where I began to get my leadership skills, and really, because I didn't necessarily have that opportunity, only because we had leaders already in place. Sometimes you have to go outside when you don't want to leave a great company, and I didn't. But you have to go outside to get those and develop those skills. So would you recommend, what courses, anything y'all have taken that you would recommend others to do so that impacted where you are today? Lisa, again, I'll start with you.
Our company at the time, back in 2010, is when they started their first leadership development group. And they brought in a corporate coaching firm to come in and facilitate. There were 7 of us. 3 of us are in executive level positions today, 3 of the 7. I highly recommend it because especially if you're working in a large corporate or a large company, it's one thing to manage a process or manage, a 5-person team. It's quite another to have to lead a team of 200 people, or even 100 people, especially at times when things are changing rapidly. People don't like change, and you have to get them on board with it. And so, yeah, I highly recommend it. For our title management team, I work with one of our underwriters, Old Republic, who's a good partner to Home Services. And they developed and facilitated John Maxwell training for our management team. And it involved, reading a book. We read The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. The book begins with self-awareness, which I think is huge. You have to, you have to be self-aware. Pause and reflect is one of the chapters, because you learn from those, experiences that took place earlier in the day and last week. We did DISC assessment. It was about a 6-month program, and our team just thrived during that time. Just really enjoyed the education. You don't get it otherwise.
You don't. And that's
Yeah.
really so eye-opening, because sometimes we undervalue how
Mhm.
critical that training is for so many. It was for me, because I know that I would not have developed into the role where Gino saw me,
Mhm.
because I was pretty much invisible. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Where somebody like Gino said, "Oh my God, you need to come work for me and run diversity," and I was like, "What? Me? Are you kidding me?" Like, that. So, how about you, Tanya?
I think it is being open to volunteer and like step up and be the person, looking for mentors in whatever organization you're in whose leadership qualities you admire, and, asking them questions, taking them to lunch and trying to learn from them.
Mhm.
And if you have the opportunity, working with an executive coach is also something that I think is just invaluable.
Have you done
As
that
I
yourself?
have, yes, and I
Wow.
continue to. I continue
That's
to.
great, because a lot of people don't understand how that's also really important to have an
Mhm.
executive coach and to
Mhm.
pay, because it's like money out of your pocket. Is it worth it?
Right.
It's good to hear that you do that and you found it valuable. Amy?
I took a class years ago on learn to listen and be pragmatic. And I think those are the key to success. You have to listen first. There's always two sides to every story, and you can't make a management decision on emotion. It all has to be on fact, and it has to be fair. So I think that that's a course, and it's still out there, but it's listen first. I try really hard to remember that.
Mhm.
I love it. And so again, this advice has been great from all three of you. And for me, like I said, even if you can't or do not have the opportunity within your companies, their volunteer organizations need your talent. So I'm always going to tell you, whether it's NARA, ARIA, the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance, whether it's a nonprofit organization that's there to serve. I know that you talked about that, Amy, the work that you were doing with that organization that helped elderly individuals. People always need talent, whether it's coaching a soccer game, your kids. Take that leap of faith. I was a Girl Scout leader. I was a soccer coach. I was my room mom. I mean, I did it all just because I really loved always helping. That was my biggest thing, is providing assistance and passion on that. And that's where you develop and get into the opportunities that, again, that if you don't know, you seek. Obviously, I sought those, right? I sought those because I was involved with them. And then when that chance comes to you where somebody is tapping you, right, and saying you should consider this new job, or have you thought about doing this? Oh, I don't want to do that. That sounds like horrible work. Do it, because it really helps you expand your knowledge base and become an expert in some other area that you had no idea would benefit you in the future, as all of you have mentioned in this call today. All right, let's talk about what accomplishment would you consider one of the biggest things that has been part of your life, either professionally or personally? A big accomplishment as we kind of wrap up. Amy, I'll start with you.
I think I would call them blessings, and they call me mom.
Oh.
I think that's what I would have to say. I'm proud of all three of them. They are all, I'm an empty nester, so they're all, one's in grad school, one's has graduated from college, and one just started. But I have to quickly tell you about my oldest. We adopted her when she was 9 years old. And she lived a rough little life. And she came to us, and it was like a little duckling that got right in line with the rest of them and just went right along. And today, to see her go to college and now go to grad school and be so productive, I have to tell you, that's one of the things I'm most proud of. I really am. She's
That's
so
beautiful.
awesome.
That's
So do you have
wonderful.
a daughter, or what's your makeup of your children?
So the oldest one is the one we adopted, but we adopted her last because we had the first two. So I have the youngest is a daughter, the middle one's a son, and then of course the oldest
Is
is
the daughter.
a daughter.
So two girls and a son. I love that.
Yeah.
How about you, Tonya?
Well, first, I just want to say, Amy, that story is just
Beautiful.
thank you so much for sharing that. That's just beautiful. So it's so just heartwarming to hear that. Obviously, my children as well, but I guess, the fact that what we have strived to do is create a firm and it's lasted for over 30 years. And, my goal is that it's a brand and it lasted, far beyond me. I mean, that's what we've accomplished so far, and I've accomplished so far, and it's what I continue to focus my career on.
And Tonya, it is one of the most respected in the state of Georgia that I know of, and I'm sure also in other areas that you touch. And I think another accomplishment I have to mention this, whether you do or not, is that you also work with your spouse, right?
I do, yes.
So
yes.
That is a huge accomplishment.
Yes.
I will tell you, Mike and I laugh all the time because we were, even on our projects at home, I'm like, I would never work with you. I would never we would kill each other. And so being able to do that so successfully, and you complement each other so well. And again, I love your law firm, and because of the wisdom and because of the great customer service that you offer all of your clients and all of the realtors that you represent across the country. All right, Lisa, how about you?
Well, obviously my family as well. But professionally, I would say the team that we have grown over the past 2 years, we brought in so many brand new, inexperienced people who had fantastic attitudes, are engaged in the business, want to do well, and they now have a career here, at least in the industry, but they're still with us. And I couldn't be more proud of the work that they've put in and the people that how they are serving our agents and their clients. They're just doing a fantastic job.
Oh, what a beautiful way to wrap up our series today. And again, I always end each of our sessions talking about what would be, because I think it's always nice to end with leaving somebody something, right, that they can take away. So again, favorite book, and also quote. If you don't read and you don't, because I'm not a book reader. I think Gino, I told him that when I first joined the firm, because he's a big avid reader. And so he said, well, Audible's fantastic. You should get that one because that's really good. And so I do listen to a lot of books. So again, if it's a podcast or a book or a quote, right, that you would like to share. And I'll start with you, Tonya.
So I love all the John Maxwell books. I was thinking about, because you had shared that as a potential question, and I don't know that I have a specific book or specific quote, but instead it's a concept that I've learned from a variety of things. And really, that's no problem is too big. No problem can't be solved, basically. And when you bring your mind and your heart to it, we can overcome any obstacle.
Oh, that's beautiful. So true.
Mm-hmm.
So true. I love that. How about you, Amy?
Well, I think the greatest book, or maybe not the greatest, but one that had the most impact is called The Grace Awakening, and it's by Charles Swindoll. And I'm going to read just a little excerpt. It says, the longer I live, the more I realize the impact on attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It's more important than the past, education, money, circumstances, failures, or successes. It's more important than what other people do, think, or say. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill, and it will make or break a company. We cannot change our past. We can only change the fact that, and we cannot change the fact that people will act a certain way. We can only do one thing, which is play on the string that we have, and that's our attitude. I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. Attitude is a small thing that makes a great big difference. So that's mine.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. I love that excerpt. And so, so true. Attitude is everything, how we react to it. Very nice. How about you, Lisa?
I feel like we should end on that, but but the book that we just finished, the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell, there are only so many, executive level positions. I think we all have a lot of middle managers, and those John Maxwell books are very easy to read. You could take a chapter at a time, and I highly recommend them.
Wow, I love that. And I am a John Maxwell follower as well, and I love his books. I think they're real insightful, and there's so many, there's so many that you can choose to, follow and then learn from them. So again, it's been such a pleasure. I mean it, to connect with all of you today. I really have enjoyed learning about each of you, the way you operate, what makes you tick, and also the backgrounds and experiences that you shared with all of the audience. Again, for those of you, remember, you can also catch and watch past episodes of the show right here on this Facebook page, womenwholeadseries.com. But you also can catch this episode. It'll air in the next 2 weeks. As a podcast. So you'll be able to catch it on Google, Apple, or Spotify. Again, for those who don't love to read, it's a great podcast that we will have the opportunity to also include these amazing leaders. I love this quote by Simon Sinek, which is so fitting for our panelists today, because we spoke a lot about backgrounds and interests, and also protecting our interests. And that is, leaders put their own interests aside to protect us or to pull us into the future. And I think that we all talked about that and how important it was. And the work that you do is so critical to our future. So thank you again for being part of this program. All of you, please make sure to comment, like our page, join our YouTube channel, because this is also a YouTube channel. And then join me on December 14th right here on this channel, when we're going to zoom in on another team of great leaders. Thank you for watching the show. And please remember, I always say this because I think it's really important. It's about focusing on women and helping us bring others up the ladder as we climb to the top. Thanks again. Have a great Thanksgiving, and see all of you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.